Do you like money? If so, then like me and everyone else, you need a job. And in order to be able to get a job, you have to get employed. To get employed, it requires some skills and some knowledge about interview etiquette. During this presentation, I'll go over some of the best interview etiquette to follow while being interviewed for employment. According to a worldwide employment website, Indeed.com, Indeed's editorial team published on December 6, 2022, if you can make a good impression upon a hiring manager during the interview, you increase your chances of being hired. Hi, I'm Chris Barker, and I followed some of these interview etiquette techniques, and there's no doubt in my mind that it's helped me to be able to gain employment. Today, I'd like to share some of those interview etiquettes, good job interview etiquettes, with you. Let's start by finding out what is etiquette. Etiquette is the rules of conduct and behavior you're expected to follow. Good etiquette is acting, looking, doing what we consider responsible, professional. Now that we know what good etiquette is, let's find out what good job interview etiquette is so important. According to an article from resume.com on September 23, 2019, when conducting job interviews, employers often evaluate more than the interviewee's response to their questions. They form first impressions based upon an individual's dress, behavior, body language, and manners. Simply put, good interview etiquette can only help you get the job. In the same article, resume.com went on to say, job interview etiquette is key to making a great first impression on an employer. Interviewers will notice how you dress, how you greet them, what time you arrive, and how you conduct yourself. You should do the best to look, act, and speak in a way that shows confidence and competence. Now that we know what etiquette is, what are some good job interview etiquettes? First, you should research the company that you're trying to get employed by. Know as much about the potential job as you possibly can. The more you know, it can only help you. And what I mean by that is, try to figure out what questions they're going to ask you ahead of time. That way, if you have kind of a somewhat prepared answer, you can also figure out how to put in some things that will help you to be able to prove your cause of being get hired on in the company. Second, you need to arrive on time. Try to be there about 10, 15 minutes early. If you're late for your interview, it could cost you your interview, and it could also cost you your chance for the job. Third, you should dress appropriately. Remember during the first one when we talked about research? Well, this is where you should try to look and find out how you should dress when you show up. And it should be based upon the company's cultures and how they expect you to look. Here's an example of why it's important to do research and why it's important to dress for the job. There was a job I really wanted. I did my research, or thought that I did my research. Had my resume, had everything together. Uh, as far as the way I dressed, I wore a business suit with the tie and the suspenders. I mean, I looked as best as I could, and I had everything. I had my ducks in a row. During the interview, everything went really, really well. I could tell by the answers I was giving and by the way those answers were being received, everything was going as best as it possibly could. In my mind, I thought, I've got this. I've got this. Well, it ended up I didn't have it. It took me. I did eventually get hired on by that company, but it took about 2 weeks. I had to do the callbacks and I really had to work and I really had to promote myself in order to be able to get hired on into this company. Probably a couple years later, I became a pretty good friend with the hiring manager. And I asked him, I went back and I asked him, I said, you remember when I did that interview? He goes, yeah. I said, how come I didn't get hired right away? How come it took so long? How come I had to work so hard to get hired on? I thought everything went really, really well. And his answer to me was, it did. It went really, really well, except you dressed too nice. You dressed so nicely that everyone thought that maybe you were afraid to get dirty. They didn't think that you were a fit for this company and some of the things you sometimes have to do when employed. That's why it's so important to do your research. That's why it's so important to know the company's culture and the job ahead of time and how they dress. My cool suspenders, well, they didn't cool. So, but fortunately, things did work out. But that's how important it is. It almost cost me the job. Some more examples of good interview etiquettes are: bring everything you need. Have your resume, have your portfolio, uh, have your references ready, and have everything kind of lined out. So if they ask you questions, you're nice and organized. Because you want to look organized. You want to look like you got it together. Use good body language. And what I mean by body language is by posture. When you're discussing things with the interviewer, make sure you make good eye contact. And one thing that you always forget to do, especially when you're nervous, like even now, you forget to smile. Let them know that you're happy to be there. You should greet everyone that you meet and be respectful. One of the ways that you're respectful during the interview is you let the interviewer take the lead. You don't try to take over for the interview. And one last thing: speak confidently and don't be afraid to ask questions. Today, I've discussed some interview etiquettes and given you some examples of it. The examples I've given aren't the only ones out there, but they are considered by many to be some of the best. Remember when I asked you, do you like money? Having a job will put money in your pocket, and following good job interview etiquette will help you to get that job. Thank you very much.